There's no secret formula for scaling support and boosting customer satisfaction. But there is the all-new Service Hub from HubSpot. It makes it infinitely easier to scale customer support and increase retention. By bringing service and support together in one powerful platform, you can deliver the best experiences for your customers and your teams. Free up time for your reps to focus on complex issues with an AI-powered help desk. Proactively drive retention with customer health scores that help keep your business ahead, stopping churn in its tracks. And give your entire go-to-market team the data they need to operate as one unified, powerful front. All so you can better connect with customers and keep them happy. Secrets out. HubSpot Service Hub is a game changer. Visit HubSpot.com/service to do more for your customers today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday, June 5th. I'm John Weigell here with Tory Bullock, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. We've all had to eat at a weird airport restaurant before. Many U.S. airports carry these one-off non-franchise dining spots that have cornered the airport food market. We're not talking about McDonald's, we're talking about places kind of like New York Bagel Deli and Soho Cafe, among many other generically named establishments depending on where you are. So who owns these, quote, fake restaurants, and why do airports across the U.S. allow them to run ship in their terminals? We'll answer those questions with the help of Tory Bullock, who produced a video on these airport restaurants for the Hustle YouTube channel. But before that, let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. Starting off here, if you have a second or third generation Apple TV, you can kiss your Netflix account goodbye. The streaming service said it will no longer be available on those 10-plus-year-old models. Ouch. Over to Samsung. Samsung is getting ahead of its Galaxy Ring release by suing Aura. Samsung's suit alleges that Aura has a tendency for filing patent suits against competitors. It might be next. And points out that Galaxy Ring doesn't infringe on Aura's patents. How hilarious is that to create a lawsuit because you know that you're going to get sued? Amazing. Well done, Samsung. Over to the neurotech industry. Neurotech company Elamind launched a headband designed to improve sleep by directing users' brainwaves. Elamind's clinical trial found the device helped 76% of participants fall asleep faster. Over to sports and celebrity drinks. Soccer legend Lionel Messi dropped his own drink line, Mas Plus by Messi, which is, quote, a next-generation hydration beverage. Consumers were quick, though, to point out on social media that the branding looks a whole lot like Logan Paul and KSA's Prime drink line. And finally, the Tokyo government's new dating app isn't messing around at all. Users will be required to verify income and relationship status, interview with the app team, and sign a pledge that they're in it for marriage rather than a fling. So lots to do in Japan if you're looking to get on this dating app. Okay, today's big chat is all about the business of airport food and the oddly named non-franchised establishments that serve you at the airport. As said before, we have Tory Bullock here who produced a video on these, quote, fake restaurants and spent a day in JFK Terminal 8 to do it. So welcome, Tory. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty amazing today. Hearing you go through that intro gave me some quick flashbacks of being back in the terminal, so definitely ready to get into it.
Well, I'm happy you're in the headspace because I definitely wanted to start off talking about JFK Terminal 8 because it is a very specific terminal in a very specific airport, but this problem is kind of nationwide. But tell me about spending the day in JFK Terminal 8. What was your impression of these restaurants that you saw there?
It was a very funny experience, if I'm being honest, because I'm from Boston and getting to New York is maybe, hours, some change out. Not a very long trip at all. But I get over there, and once I get kind of off the plane, I go up the escalator, and I start seeing some of the restaurants. It honestly felt like I was meeting celebrities. I've been working on this script for so long and doing so much research that when I got off the escalator and I saw oh my gosh, that's New York Deli. So just having that background of looking them up before I got to it provided a very cool moment when I got to see them in person. But actually just walking around them, eating at them, kind of feeling the vibes of each of these kind of fake restaurants was a very interesting experience.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you would describe as a, quote, fake restaurant? Because I've also had this thought traveling through a lot of airports before about these kind of one-off, non-franchise type places, but I never really knew the word to associate with them. Can you describe what a fake restaurant is in this case?
Okay, so for everyone listening out there who has had the exact same experience, a fake restaurant, it is a legitimate business. We're not talking about some sketchy, black market company going down or anything like that. When I say fake restaurant, I'm referring to businesses that are generic, businesses with names that you haven't heard before. So there's the franchise players like McDonald's, Arby's, Dunkin' Donuts, etc. Places that we've heard and seen all over the country from, however old you are, no matter where you are, you see or know these places. But then there are places like Soho Bistro or O'Neill's that aren't household names. But when you go to them and you see their signage and kind of the vibe of them, they have the feel of just another neighborhood restaurant, but they're far from that. So that's what a fake restaurant is.
Mm-hmm. And how many airports across the US have these kinds of restaurants in them?
Oh, dude, hundreds across, and not just across the country, but across the world. We're talking from LAX to Vietnam. There are a few different companies that are responsible for the creation of these generic restaurants. But in terms of how wide they span, we're talking about a worldwide trend here.
Yeah, and you talk about the companies that own all these restaurants. What is the dominant company in your mind that owns and operates all of these airport experiences?
Okay, so I can't whittle it down to one, but I can give two.
Sure.
There's the biggest one, which I believe is HMS Host. They exist at so many different airports. I challenge your listeners, next time you go to an airport and you go to a Starbucks or you go to an off-brand restaurant that you've never heard of before, do me a favor and just look at the back of that receipt. Because for me, at least, when I was actually shooting this video, I just wanted to get some Starbucks in the morning and, grab some mints from the store and keep it moving. And I was looking at the receipt and I would just see HMS Host, HMS Host. And when I was talking about earlier from LAX to Vietnam, HMS Host is the biggest one. There, we're talking international player, but OTG is kind of the one that changed the game technologically for airport dining. They've been around since 1996 when their founder, Rick Blackstein, essentially he just noticed a problem with airport terminals in being that they are super dreary. There's not too much going on in them. And this was before there were a lot of dining options and stuff inside of the actual terminals or at the gates. So he had this vision of making it super easy for people to be able to just order on demand and be able to check their flight info, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So he introduces iPads into the game. And I don't know about you, but I specifically remember when I started going to airports and there were just kind of tablets at tables. And I'm like, okay, what's this? Oh, yeah. And all of a sudden I'm ordering drinks. I'm getting Caesar salads. Yeah. I'm like living it up.
I'm playing some games, playing some Bejeweled.
I'm doing it all on there. So yeah, those are probably the two big players in the space, I would say.
So that kind of brings up another question here, because a lot of airports across US and across the world use a lot of these one-off restaurant concepts, right? And you also go to airports sometimes and you see like your McDonald's, your Wendy's, but it seems like these airport restaurants are kind of more available than those particular fast food restaurants. And of course, they're not chains, but why aren't more chains moving into airports?
It's an interesting issue because I'm not saying with this video that chains don't exist in any airports, but depending on where you are, and using JFK Terminal 8 as an example, there are just way more generic restaurants in that terminal than there are franchise players. And the reason behind that is it comes down to business. Honestly, it just takes a lot more to set up a franchise. It's going to cost you about $45,000 to put that McDonald's inside of an airport. If we move over to something like Baja Fresh, it's going to cost you $202,000 to put that restaurant inside of an airport. Wow. And that's not including other fees like just rent to the airport that you're going to have to pay. So the bottom line is the reason you may see a lot of generic players instead of just seeing franchise players in airports is because it's way more cost effective to have generic spots.
Yeah. And how does that break down? How is it more beneficial to the airport or beneficial to the restaurant group to have those generic restaurants inside an airport rather than franchises?
Yeah. So basically, the benefit for them, there are a couple of things. First off, they get to negotiate with one big operator instead of talking to a bunch of different franchisees or a bunch of different vendors for a space. So, for example, like if I'm talking to John and John represents, a concession operator, John is saying, hey, I'll run 6 restaurants for you all under my umbrella. I'm taking care of all the behind the scenes aspects of it. And we can negotiate the fees kind of across the board for 6 different places. When you're doing that just with franchise players, you may have to enter 5 to 6 different negotiations to get the same result. The other really cool thing that these concession operators do for airports are super high security. There are a lot of different restrictions that they face. So the thought of getting certain things in for work or getting certain materials in, basically setting up a restaurant inside of an airport comes with a lot of different kind of doors that you have to get through. Companies like OTG, they're saying, hey, we'll take a lot of that load off of you. We'll do really in-depth background checks. We'll do fingerprinting. We'll make sure that our employees are ready to go through any process that you already have set up at the airport.
It sounds like these restaurant groups are alleviating the pressure off of the airports for work that they would normally have to do for someone like a McDonald's or like a Wendy's or somebody coming in on the outside. No, it makes a lot of sense. And it's a good business strategy. But I do have to ask, are they any good? You spent a whole day in Terminal 8 of JFK. I'm assuming you sampled quite a few of them. What's the verdict? I have my opinion, but I would love to hear yours.
Okay. If we're being very honest right now, I had a couple of things. I had a Caesar salad, I had a turkey club sandwich, and I just grabbed a drink somewhere. And if I'm being completely honest, they weren't the best things I've had in my life. When I had the Caesar salad, it was very kind of dry. The croutons were a little stale. The sauce was I don't know if it's possible to taste old, but it tasted a little past the freshness date.
Sure.
So I wasn't super amped about that Caesar. And then when I had a sandwich, it also wasn't really hitting the spot for me. It was doing what it needed to do because I'm starving in an airport and I'm a captive customer.
Right.
But outside of that, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I just hate it. It's just super overpriced. Everything's not very good. Finding a McDonald's in an airport, finding a Wendy's in an airport is like the gods are singing to me because everything else, usually if there are these kind of one-off restaurants, exactly as you said, you're a captive consumer. You have to eat there. You have to spend the money if you're hungry. So they kind of have you. But did you find that was the case in a lot of the airports you researched, or are there some that have actually some, quote, good stuff in them?
Yeah, with some lovely quotes around good stuff. In my research, I did find that at Portland International Airport, they're kind of going with a different strategy. Rather than kind of just building a roster of a lot of generic restaurants, they are actually making a move to work with more kind of established local businesses to Portland. So on their roster, they have one generic restaurant at the moment, and they have 15 restaurants that are all local businesses that already have good ratings, that exist outside of the bubble of the airport, that have kind of been co-signed by real regular people with regular non-captive taste buds. So they've been able to kind of say, like, this is of quality, and they've been bringing those places into airports. So there is another example of a way to do this.
That's good news that there's at least some local businesses permeating that particular airport. I know, like, from visiting the Austin airport, there's some local businesses there as well. And last thing I'll ask today, because this is all just a great wealth of information, I feel like, but I do want to know, if you were actually stopping at JFK Terminal 8 and you had to eat something, what would you go eat?
I mean, for me, that's a real simple question. I mean, if I'm in a mode of wanting to support local economies, I may choose another option other than this. But if I'm going to go with my Boston hot, it would go straight to Dunkin' Donuts. We doing Dunkin' Donuts if there's a Dunkin' Donuts on the menu, we will be French vanillaing all day long. That's my choice.
Oh yeah. I gotta agree with that. A franchise, but man, give me a donut, give me a croissant, give me a like sausage, egg, and cheese. Give me a latte. I'm happy. That sounds great.
Good to go.
Well, thank you, Tory, so much for chatting today. Really appreciate what you've done in flying to JFK for a day and exploring. And definitely everybody listening, if you hadn't had a chance, go watch the video up on the Hustle YouTube channel. I guarantee you it's a good time and you're going to learn a heck of a lot. So thanks, Tory.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hey everybody, I got a great podcast to tell you about. It's called Truth, Lies, and Work, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. On this show, you can join husband and wife team Al and Leanne Elliott as they dispel myths, impart wisdom, and answer all your questions about finding, keeping, and motivating great people. They actually just did an episode with John Smith, who is the manager and agent of famous Argentinian soccer player Diego Maradona. He talks about in this episode how he was able to manage the global superstar, athlete, celebrity that Maradona is and was. It's a great listen. You better get out there and check it out. And you can listen to Truth, Lies, and Work wherever you get your podcasts.